Chapter 7. The truth was, Barry Simmons had spent his life setting up conduits for his clients' dirty money, and dirty it was, the fruit of crime and corruption. He'd built a cast-iron circuit of conduits, managed from Belize, into which dirty money flowed, was washed whiter than white via a cascade of Caribbean banks, channeled into real estate, sold to investors, and the proceeds wired to London via the major banks and legitimately reinvested in prime property. It wasn't his money. He was, in a manner of speaking, a jobber. But now he was tired and wanted out. The trouble was, after his partner Gordon Young retired to England, he'd got in too deep. Besides, over the years his clientele had changed. At the outset they were British tax dodgers of various ilks. Then, thanks to Wallace, Russians, middlemen acting on behalf of a coterie of government officials, corrupt politicians, crooked businessmen and their helpers. At the other end of the circuit, with the connivance of British politicians and bankers, the City of London rolled out a red carpet to welcome a clique of thieving oligarchs, fat from their feast on the carcass of the Soviet Union. They appeared in all guises, from oligarchs who sponsored English League football clubs with money looted from state-owned enterprises, stolen from the people of the Soviet Union, to art-loving billionaires with links to organised crime, who by stealth insinuated their way into British society, buying politicians, their parties, respected institutions, and even the governing bodies of venerable universities. In spite of Theresa May telling the House of Commons, "There is no place for these people or their money in our country. Those who seek to harm us, my message is simple, you are not welcome here." Russians and former Soviet citizens continued to flock to London, stash their money in British banks, and invest in businesses via devious routes dreamt up by lawyers like Barry Simmons. Simo knew too much, but how was he to get out? Like the proverbial physician, he never took time to care for himself. Medici cura te ipsum. Essentially honest, but there was a streak of naivety, or was it the kind of fatality that affected those who overstayed their welcome in Belize? Sir Patrick Kennedy was a top A-list banker, one of those people who enjoyed privileges beyond those of transient politicians, diplomats and ambassadors. He enjoyed the kind of privileges enjoyed by many heads of states, much larger than Belize, a country he could have bought up lock, stock and barrel, if he was crazy enough to do so. Tens, even hundreds of thousands depended directly on his decisions, millions indirectly. The wind turned when Britain's political classes finally woke up to the realization that the City of London had become a convenient money laundering hub and prime property a vehicle to conceal the gains derived from crime and corruption. Liberalism was an admirable quality, but it left the door open to kleptocrats and ruthless oligarchs, in the guise of investors and philanthropists, agents of the Kremlin's authoritarian methods. It was not long before clear-sighted men launched a cry of alarm. With so much Russian money in the city, leaders awoke to the realization that the Kremlin's men were in a position of force to influence the country's political, cultural and educational institutions. Simo didn't work with those members of the British establishment who filled their pockets preening and kowtowing to rich and powerful Russians close to the Kremlin, quaffing their vodka and caviar at cocktail parties in their extravagant homes in Knightsbridge or receptions at the Russian embassy in Kensington Gardens. His work was with that of a different tier, those that oiled and greased the machine of the Russian oligarchy, the agents, doers and bag carriers who gleaned the crumbs that fell from the tables of their rich masters. Belize was an offshore backwater where for anything from $700 a law firm like Young and Simmons would set up a company and a bank account in an hour for any unsavoury would-be oligarch. In a sense, Simo had, indirectly, become a de facto agent of the Russian oligarchy. Not that any of the real oligarchs had ever heard of him. His business with Wallace had made him careless. It was easy money, too easy, causing him to point his better, though more demanding, well-heeled clients towards a more successful colleague among the army of willing lawyers, solicitors and estate agents in the City of London, or one of the UK's more reputable offshore financial tax havens.